Welcome to the Women Influencers in Business and CRE podcast. I am Veronica Malolos, CCIM, founder and CEO of Capital Stack Real Estate Group, a commercial real estate company serving the greater Orlando area. Today's guest is Kenisha Robnett, CCIM instructor, broker, and fabulous friend. We spoke about how she grew up learning to value education, her impact on the Georgia CCIM chapter's diversity through her leadership, and so much more. Please don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe below. I welcome your comments and please share with someone who can benefit from this podcast. Good morning, Kenisha. How are you today?
Doing very well. And yourself?
I am good. I am in Tampa, actually, and you're in Georgia. So thank you so much. And I'm so glad that we're both on Eastern Standard Time or Eastern Daylight Savings Time, whatever time it is. But we're in the same time zone, which is great. So I appreciate you. I know you're a very busy woman. So I wanted to start out by saying thank you for gracing our podcast. And also, I'm super excited to hear about your story of how you grew up in your environment and how you got to where you are today. So tell us.
Okay. Well, I have been in commercial real estate almost 18 years now. Started out, I was in Arizona, believe it or not. Started out in commercial real estate in Arizona. Actually, just real estate, period. I was originally a research scientist, if you can believe that.
Yes, I do. I do believe that.
I had a chemistry and Spanish undergraduate degree, and I was studying diseases and all over the world. And then I came back stateside and was doing clinical research for cardiovascular concerns, testing pharmaceutical drugs on human beings. I was like, it just did not sit well with me, did not resonate. I did not feel like I was making an impact as far as helping people. And I got introduced to commercial real estate or real estate in general, just from a couple that I knew in Arizona. And they were friends of my godmother. And it just, when I started to learn about real estate, it was a whole new world that opened up and it touched my soul. Wow. And it just seemed like it affected everything. It was the ground you walked on. It was the buildings you went into. It was the school. It's the church, the hospital. It's everywhere. And it was so many different opportunities. So I jumped in immediately. I was super excited. They were investors. They had their own commercial real estate firm. They did insurance. I learned a lot from that couple. And then I just took off. So then I ended up getting my master's in real estate development at Arizona State University. I kept adding education and just tools to my toolbox. And then ended up moving back to Georgia. I got hired by a development firm out here, which moved me back. I did 5 years of tenant rep in Arizona for a company called UGL Equus, and they have since merged with Cushman and Wakefield. And when I came back here, I worked for that developer and just adding more arsenal, and learning more and gathering more skills. And I managed a number of mixed-use retail developments. So now I'm having just learning about high rises and the back of house and development and everything. So then after that, I got hired by Walmart and I moved to Arkansas.
Wow.
And so I was in the real estate department. So there you did a little bit of everything. So I did some site selection. I had an $8 billion portfolio. It was about 44 million square feet. Moved around a little bit, started with the East Coast, then had my last territory was around Texas, Houston area, and I sold excess land. I did lease negotiations, carve outs, curb cuts, you name it. You did it all. They trusted your judgment. You had to fly, look at the properties. It was a great experience. It was the most volume that I've ever, just had my hands on. I did oil and gas leases, billboard leases. Just had all of that in my portfolio.
Wow.
That's also where I got really serious about pursuing my CCIM designation. And so I went ahead and did that while I was there at Walmart and got pinned in 2017. And 2 years later, became a CCIM instructor in 2019, teaching 103 user decisions. And and so now that I'm back in Georgia, I am with a company called Greenwood CRE, fairly new, 2 years old or so, a number of people in the industry that have had, 15 to 30 something plus years of experience came together to start a new company called Greenwood. It is African-American led, and we are in 22 cities all over the country. So
wow, that's
that's a little bit
awesome.
of my history.
Yeah, but I'm curious about your family too. Who was your role model in your family? I mean, did you grow up with lots of siblings? Maybe you're an only child. I'm always so curious about that stuff.
Yeah, so I grew up in Detroit, Michigan.
Oh, wow.
My parents have been married for 48 years. Yes, absolutely. 48 years still together. My dad is at my house right now.
Oh, very cool.
Yes, I see them frequently all the time. They're 26 minutes away from me. My brother's 26 minutes one direction. My parents are 26 minutes the other direction. I'm in the middle. So my house is the meeting house.
Oh, cool.
We have dinner. This is where the kids play. This is where the kids swim. I have 3 nephews. One is in Tampa, one and the other 2 are here. And I have 2 nieces, and they're in Detroit, Michigan with my sister. And yeah, so
you grew up pretty much in a big family, kind of big
a
sort
brother
of.
and a sister, and I'm in the middle.
Middle child like
Yes.
me. I love that. So did you feel like your family dynamic actually inspired you to keep going as far as education? Because I know some of the cultures, for instance, like mine, Asians value education and higher education. And I know you kind of kept going with your education.
My mom was an educator. Yeah, she got her master's degree in Michigan. She was an educator. She taught all the way from kindergarten, and she taught all the way to high schoolers in Michigan. So she was always about learn, and she would teach. In the summers, I mean, even before we could go outside to play, we had a stack of books we had to read, So we were always reading. There was never a dull moment. My parents had me in everything. So I grew up always doing multiple tasks at once. So I was a Girl Scout. They had me in swimming lessons, tennis lessons, golf lessons. I didn't have an idle moment. So although I grew up in Detroit, in the city, they removed me from the city so my environment would not have a negative impact on me. So they kept me busy. And now I have that same, I always have a lot going on.
Wow, that's amazing. I love stories like that, because to me, I think that often people really don't realize how much the adult you gets shaped by your
early
family. Yeah. So that's
and it's shaped
amazing.
at an early age. And my parents scraped, pennies together to put me in a private school. And I was in a private Christian school growing up from kindergarten to 8th grade until we moved to Georgia. And my parents moved to Georgia so I could go to a different high school.
Wow.
So they were the early years definitely molded me, because I'm able to take on a lot, and education is also very important, but I'm able to take on a lot because I've always had to manage a lot. They just kept me very busy.
Wow.
Very, very busy.
That's great. That's great to hear, because we know each other from a very wonderful group of women that get together once a month called the Power Beacons. And I'm always so in admiration of your energy, and you're always so positive, and you have such a great smile, and I think, now I kind of understand why a little bit more. So yeah, it's so awesome. But let's move on, and let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you overcame. Maybe just one challenge that comes to mind that you overcame while building your career in a mostly male dominated industry.
Oh gosh. I'm sure we have plenty of stories like that, but I was even just starting out when I first started with the company in Arizona. I mentioned earlier, I was a tenant rep, and I was there for 5 years and never met my broker. So our office did really well, financially. Our broker was in Tucson. So we would just send documents, he would sign. But that also meant when I came into the industry, there was no, let me sit down and teach you. There was no, here's the information. Here's a book of glossary, here's terminology. It wasn't no hand holding, no nothing. I got an office and a phone, and they said, pick a building, in the financial district and stack that and cold call and know every single, decision maker, every single lease that's expiring. That's your job. And they wanted me to cold call. And my name is Kenisha. So I can't just pick up the phone to a decision maker and, with a name like Kenisha and think I'm going to go very far. So that right there.
Why do you think that is?
That's just how it is. That is,
Okay.
It's not even something I have to think about. That's just how it was. That's how it was in the industry. Even when we went to our first, I'm not going to say my first, but there was a law firm that we were pitching. It was myself and another guy that worked at that company. And we were pitching to this law firm. He was coming in after I did. I came in, I sat down, we were in the boardroom, and, I was getting ready to do the presentation. It was going to be me presenting. And then everyone was, chattering, and they said, well, we'll get started when your boss gets here.
Yeah, that's a very common story.
Right, something like that.
Yeah.
So it was just like no one thought in a million years that I could be a broker, or I could be the one presenting, or I'm not here to get your coffee. Kenisha is here to do the presentation for you.
Right. And this was 18 years ago, correct?
18 years ago, right.
Yeah.
But this was another reason why I was so adamant about getting the additional information and the education and the CCIM and the letter, because the letters behind my name actually preceded me. So I noticed that CCIM helped to open doors for me. So whereas Kenisha may not have gotten me, a phone call answered or an email answered or returned, but CCIM did, or MRED did, Masters of Real Estate Development. So it was very, very important to me to continue to get as much education so I could be taken seriously.
So pretty much what you're saying is the education and the CCIM designation actually was a big part of how you overcame that challenge. And I'll tell you that it was the same for me. Look, I'm an immigrant, and I'm a woman of color like you, and I'm a woman in a very male-dominated industry. And I remember having to deal with a pretty large firm, and the broker was talking down to me. And I just told him at the very end, why don't you send me all the deal points on an email? And when I responded back and he saw that I had CCIM next to my name, he never talked that way to me again. So yes, I do agree that that really, really does matter. And there's a lot of value to that. So thank you for that. I wanted to move on and talk about influence. Now, the title of our podcast is Women Influencers in Business and CRE. And normally the word influencer really refers to nowadays to social media influencers, but not in this particular case. In my podcast, I like to talk to ladies like you who are so successful and who have led an organization. And for you, that would be the Georgia chapter of the CCIM organization as president last year. And so I wanted to kind of ask you what your thoughts were, what kind of influence you think you've had on your organization, or maybe just another group, perhaps.
Okay, so definitely I have been able to make a lot of influence in the Georgia chapter for sure. Yes, I was the president last year, which was a milestone because I was the 50th chapter president, which was pretty amazing. So there was a large party that we got to throw, and we had we actually had the very first CCIM president. I was just grateful that he was still alive, that he was able to see the changes and the transition. And he, gave me a big pat on the back and said, I see everything you're doing and I commend you. That was huge. And about 4 years ago almost, we've had four groups that have come through, but I started a mentorship program for the Georgia chapter, and that has been a tremendous impact in our culture.
Yes.
Because although we're in Atlanta, it is very diverse here, but the commercial real estate industry did not reflect the diversity of our city. Even the Atlanta Commercial Board is the largest commercial board in the country. Same thing. It did not reflect, like, it just didn't even look the same. It just didn't. So with our mentorship program, we started out, we wanted to help people that were starting out in the industry or had 3 years or less of commercial real estate experience. And I also knew of a company or a program called REAP, the Real Estate Associate Program. They had been around for over 25 years. Myself and maybe about 3 or 4 other board members of the Georgia chapter had been contributing to that organization. So there was a Georgia REAP, Real Estate Associate Program. They would have a number of people from diverse backgrounds, men, women, of color, just to learn. It's an intensive training where they would learn about different asset classes, different areas, different companies of commercial real estate. And over years ago, when I was at Walmart, they had even hired a number of people that had graduated from this program. So it's well known in the industry if that's the place to go and to learn. So I went in and I had been speaking to them for years now, like even about corporate America, how it was, doing real estate for corporate America, and then making the transition into full-time brokerage, going back to full-time brokerage. And I had been teaching that. So I said, a lot of the students were saying, well, what next? Now that we've graduated, what's a good next step? And of course, for me, I'm going to always say CCIM, because that additional information can help you to soar and just be leaps and bounds ahead of other people. But so I was able to partner CCIM and REAP. So now we also, in our mentorship program, we accept REAP graduates, and we also accept anyone that has 3 years or less in the industry and has taken at least one CCIM class. And from that class, we have had over 60 maybe people that have participated, mentors and mentees.
Wow.
People that have gone on to start their own companies, people that have gone on to complete their CCIM designation, and they are soaring. It's been beautiful to have been the catalyst to start this, as well as to continue to be participate in that and to help so many on their journey to commercial real estate. So I would say that is how I have influenced and impacted the commercial real estate area, as well as also being one of the first Black female CCIM instructors. So that was a huge milestone as well. So
has there been anybody else that followed your footsteps as a CCIM instructor?
So myself and another lady, Stephanie, we both became instructors in 2019. And that was the first. So I think that at that point, the Institute had been around for 53 years. So it took 53 years to get Black female instructors.
Oh, that's amazing, because it's really people like you who are trailblazers, who are willing to open the door, not just for yourself, but for others behind you, that really make a difference and an impact on how the future looks like. So kudos to you. Congratulations. I am totally so happy to hear that. So let me ask you, if there was one piece of advice that you would give our listeners, what would that be?
I would say be yourself, because there are so many people out there trying to be someone else, but there's clients for you. There is a pool of people that need to hear your voice, need to hear your background, need to hear your story, and that will be influenced by that. I feel like I have brought my whole self. I've been transparent. I have been me, and there are, and I say that because when I was at the larger firm, there were clients that they did not want me to take. They would still pass that on to someone else. But now that I'm with the firm that I'm with now, I'm able to represent people that look like me. It doesn't matter if it's a church or if it's a first-time investor or people starting out in their business. And I did not have to change anything about myself,
Yeah.
to get these clients and I would just tell people to be yourself. There are people that you can reach that others cannot.
That's
you know?
right.
So
And now you don't even have to think about whether or not you're going to get a response when you say, "Hi, this is Kenisha," right?
not at all.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Amazing. So I wanted to ask you a follow-up question to that piece of advice, but this time a little bit more to, for instance, women of color who are trying to break into the industry, particularly. But uh, let me preface that by saying that 18 years ago was a completely different landscape, right? And you've been through some challenges and you've overcome them. But in this day and age where I believe there's a lot of progress made towards diversity, equity, and inclusion, what would your advice be to that very special group of women?
To women starting out, right?
Yes, women starting out, women of color.
Mm-hmm. You know what? They have the ability to go further faster. And that was like some of the reason why I did start the mentorship program. There's so many more opportunities here now than there were 18 years ago. There was no one that looked like me. It was nothing. Now there's so many other little groups and gatherings. And I would just say plug in, because people have already laid the path and now they can just kind of sink into what has already been laid for them. And I would say show up and show out because like the groundwork has already been laid. Like now you can just pick up where someone left off, which is a blessing. It's just something that, I didn't have, but this was some of the reasons why I wanted to have the mentorship program, why I wanted to give back to REAP, why I wanted to, even while I'm still on the board today, to help with some of the decisions and make sure that everyone is thought about or considered for different events or different speakers or location or anything like that. So now they can literally, someone that's starting out, they can just, like I said, just plug in, show up and show out. That's it.
Well, that's amazing advice. And I'm so happy because I'm a woman of color myself. I'm really, just like you, very happy that there's been a lot of progress. Like you said, there's a foundation that's already been laid out for us, for at least those that are entering the industry. So thank you for that. So we've come to the part of the podcast where I'm going to pass the mic on to you,
Right.
and you get to ask me a question.
Perfect. Okay, so I heard you recently mention that you were considering rebranding and you were going from naming your company Capital Stack to Cap Stack. And so I just kind of wanted to know the idea behind it. What are some of your new branding ideas? And just like the thought process behind the whole image shift.
Well, thank you for that. So my company is only 3 years old. And prior to me building Capital Stack Real Estate Group, I was with NAI, and that's how I started my commercial real estate career. Now, I've been in real estate for at least close to 20 years, 10 years in commercial real estate. But when I did that transition, I was very blessed to have been mentored by, and you know him, he's the CCIM Institute Global President in 2017, Robin Webb. He took me under his wing. He was my mentor. Yes, he hired me in NAI. Yeah. And so when I transitioned into building my own company, and again, both of us know that it takes about at least 3 years to establish yourself. And of course, at that point, when I named my company, I thought Capital Stack Real Estate Group was a really, really great name. And it is. And it's with the branding that we've done in the last 3 years. I think we've made a lot of headway, especially in social media, because we have a group that I hired, Lavasco Creative Group, that has been doing a really great work in company branding. But as we progressed, and now at year 3, we thought about how maybe the name needs to be shorter, number one, and easier to remember, number two. And again, you want a brain tattoo when it comes to image and corporate branding and all that. And I have a team that's actually, they could all be my kids because they're all much, much younger than me, which is great because I love to work with a younger group and team, and they're all CRE specialists. And I kind of asked also a friend of ours, a common friend of ours, Amy Calandrino. I had lunch with her. She's from Orlando. She's also just this fantastic person on social media. And I asked her about what her thoughts were on me rebranding to a shorter name. And she actually suggested, she said, well, what about Capstack? And I thought, wow, that's really a great name. And so I've kind of mulled it over. It's been like a few months already. Discussed it with my team and discussed it with Lavasco Creative. And even they actually referred to my company as Capstack. And I think that because of social media and more of a catchy, trying to get a catchy name, I thought that was a very, very natural way to rebrand our company. Now, it's a big deal because we're going to have to redo our logo and everything else. But that was really just a thought process to that. I believe that it's okay to pivot. It's okay to kind of elevate yourself in that way. It's going to be not so difficult. I mean, I wouldn't rebrand to a name that's so far away from Capital Stack. And so, that was pretty easy decision for us. So I'm really looking forward. We are now going to go full blast, probably the first quarter of next year, or even the end of this year is when we're going to launch it. But I appreciate that question, Kenisha. I was just a little bit surprised that you even picked up on that. I know and I suppose that's kind of a very interesting question. So I do appreciate that. I want to say that I am just so thrilled that we have this wonderful women's group that get together. I got to meet you, and I'm so inspired by you and all of the groundwork that you've done and the influence that you've had in your community. And so I appreciate really that you've taken the time to speak with me today. And I hope that this has been a good 30 minutes of your time spent.
Yes. And thank you for even having me. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Oh my gosh. I really
know you.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, I always look forward to running into you at the CCIM convention, and I'll see you in Seattle. That's just a few weeks from now. And if you have some last words, maybe for our audience, feel free.
I would say go get them. The world is your oyster. You can do it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so inspiring. But thank you, Kenisha, and we'll see each other soon.
All right, see you soon. Thank you.